Well, in 21st century, China still feels that coming up with racial stereotypes like the one you're seeing on your screen is apparently funny here. That's the video which has just gone viral here, supposedly called the 7 Sins of India, which has put in video here. Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX Connect, and today on Connect, we are going to be dissecting the 7 sins of China here and how it has continued to insult India, but at its own cost. And how has India paid China back on its own coin? Let's go across to my colleague joining us live from NewsX and NewsX HD, Gauri Dwivedi, with more details.
That's correct, Ritangshu. Yes, before we take this story forward on your screens, I just want to talk about those 3 important factors. First up, how has India trumped China as far as the retail index is concerned? That should be coming on your screens right now. Also, the fact that how Japan is completely backing India. Japan is completely backing India. So there you go on your screens right now. India's realpolitik roast, cheap Chinese checkmated. India's comeback. And that, of course, is the fact that India has pipped China on the global retail index. That's the big first story that we want to talk about. The second other important factor is that how Japan is backing India as far as the whole Doklam issue is concerned. Remember, Japan has all along maintained that there has to be peaceful negotiations as far as any standoff is concerned, backing India's stand. And the third important bit here is the fact that Vietnam has bought the BrahMos missiles from India. So there you go. In the region, you have India being supported by its allies, China being completely sidelined, being completely marginalized. And of course, in the back of that extremely racist and shameful video that has come out, Ritangshu, India has to respond in the same coin.
Absolutely, and joining me right now at the NewsX digital desk to discuss that is Mr. Anil Maheshwari, who is a foremost expert when it comes specifically to matters concerning the Northeast and strategic affairs concerning the Northeast. Thank you so much, Mr. Maheshwari, for joining us. But first, as always, let's begin with what our viewers are saying right now. There's a lot of outrage, Gauri, which is building up on social media, not just from India, but across the world. And my colleague Shashwat will take us through some of them. Shashwat, what are people saying?
Yes, Ritangshu, all kinds of comments, like the people are angry or they are terming this act by Chinese media a funny act. So let's go down what viewers are saying. Siddharth says, a comical communist cult who will never embrace democracy is taking shots at us. It seems like after cheap products, cheap media is up next. Ashutosh says, let the issue be resolved on official grounds as the given situation between both nations not on grade level, and it's that serious. Atul Gupta says, after all, it's China. They are neighbors. We can't ignore the reality. Business will go on as usual. Why should we bother so much?
Responses ranging from disbelief to just advice as to just let people continue, China continue its provocative ways, and the best way of responding to him is precisely by not doing anything. Mr. Maheshwari, first I would like to go into the sheer insensitivity of this video here. Now, the entire key part of that video deals with China claiming that India is deliberately trying to get Bhutan on its side and get the support of Bhutan, and it actually comes up with a person resembling the racial features of Bhutanese and tries to show that person and in a quite sarcastic and not something which is politically correct here. What was your first response on seeing that video?
Forward, we'll go back to Ritangshu, who's on our digital desk with more comments that are coming in on all social media platforms. But joining me in the studio is Major General retired SP Sinha, who's a defense expert, and also on Skype is Professor Swarn Singh, an Indo-China expert. Professor Singh, let me go across to you first. This narrative that the Chinese, Swarn Singh, an Indo-China expert. Professor Singh, let me go across to you first. This narrative that the Chinese are building, the Chinese media has been building in the last couple of weeks, this rhetoric has now reached another level altogether. You have the Chinese which are looking to create a narrative where it is India which is really the bully in the entire region.
Clearly part of the psychological war that Chinese have been conducting against us for last 2 months now. And in that sense, it is an escalation.
Yes, it's an escalation for sure.
We have to really understand it and not respond exactly the way they have done to us. But we have to really answer it. Chinese have been also caricatured democracy for a long time. But that doesn't matter at all. Indian democracy is respected around the world. So in that sense, you have to understand the Chinese psychological warfare. It is in the non-official media, private.
Okay, we'll try and fix that. We'll try and fix that audio line with Professor Singh. But the major point that he was making was the fact that India should not be responding in the same coin. India has exercised a lot of restraint in the standoff that has now entered its third month. Major General Sinha, how would you respond to the fact that what Professor Singh is saying, that India must exercise a certain amount of restraint and not stoop to this level?
Have you ever watched a game of boxing, Gauri?
Yes, I have, sir.
Good. I will tell you. It is not necessary for a good boxer to respond to every punch which is by way of shadow boxing. You notice which punch is going to knock you out, and then you ensure that you knock out the opponent and not that opponent is able to knock you out, firstly. Secondly, every gesture of China we don't have to respond. Thirdly, China is trying to throw a bait. It is expecting just the opposite of what is the truth. If the truth is on the North Pole, China is trying to speak the South Pole with a hope that somewhere in the middle there will be some meet path, some compromises, some give and take, and that will be in the favor of China. China's policy, Gauri ji, you have to understand.
Right.
It is take 2 steps forward, then there will be hue and cry. So
and then half a step backward.
Then you take 1 step backward. After 3-4 months, again you take 2 steps forward, and then 1 step back. So original aim of taking 2 steps is achieved in a period of 6 months to 1 year. That is the trick, that is the strategy China follows. And now India has become wise. India of today is not India of 1962. We are a powerful country with a powerful army and a powerful leadership whose determination to face China is absolutely predominant. There is no hitch about it. There is no hitch about it.
Yes.
We mean business. Whether politically we speak in one voice or not, and it is a misfortune that we are dealing with 2 dictatorships, China and indirect dictatorship, Pakistan, where the voice of one person, one organization rules the roost.
Yes.
Here everybody is speaking different voices,
Absolutely.
and still we are challenging the might of China.
Right. Major General Sinha, stay with us. I'll also like to go to Ritangshu, but before that, let's quickly take a look at the kind of responses that have come on our Facebook page. This has been an extremely emotive issue, and we've got a lot of responses. There you go on our Facebook page. Devika Swami, Mani Venkat, all of them saying that Indian media must actually launch its counter rhetoric with increased frequency and vehemence. What they are really hinting it is that should India be responding in the same coin? Well, a lot of experts are saying no, that should not be the case. India should be exercising a certain amount of restraint. Then there are more comments coming in from Hindol Mukherjee as well as Dhananjay Swai. It's obvious jealous starts wherever some find it's tough competitor. So that, I think, is a response I would like to take to Professor Singh. Sir, my question to you is, China is resorting to these tactics. At some level, it is wary of India's growing might in the region.
First of all, it is important to understand, as General was saying, on the ground, Indian forces have both in Doklam and in Ladakh pushed Chinese forces. The forces with a lot of restraint, both on the ground and at the top level of diplomacy. So in this sense, again, Chinese can always go back to this, not make export it tomorrow. So that doesn't have to get excited about it. Nevertheless, calibrate, understand that by doing so, China is definitely escalating warfare simply because their
Right.
are not delivering. So is proving to
Okay, that's a bad audio link, and I really request my producer to fix that. Let me now go across to Ritangshu, who's at our digital desk. Ritangshu, the word here is what some of the comments that are coming in on our Facebook page, as well as what our guests are saying, is there is complete unanimity in the fact that India should exercise restraint. It should not respond in the same manner. What is the word outside?
Well, yes, indeed. Mr. Maheshwari was saying that this is just a desperate attempt by China to get India to cross the line first, because China can't be seen as an aggressor in today's situation. I'm also being joined by Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, who's a former diplomat, joining me right now on NewsX Connect. Mr. Sajjanhar, what was your first response when you saw that video, which has now gone viral across the net?
I think China is demeaning itself, and it has stooped to such a low level. You know, a country which has hallucinations or illusions of grandeur or of being a great power, for it to stoop to such level, I think it is spoiling its own case. You know, rather than harming India in any way, I think it is terribly distorting and damaging its own image.
Sajjanhar, do you feel that this is a attempt, as you pointed out, this clearly reeks of desperation here? Is it somehow, or all these means somehow intended at getting India to make the first move, the first mistake? Because China knows that if it is the first aggressor in this situation here, geopolitically, it will be the biggest loser right now, because the situation has changed drastically from 1962.
You know, it is a case of psychological warfare that it is launching. You know, not to take the first step, because after all, China is the
That's
aggressor,
a very, very important
and anyone
set
who
of comments that Ashok Sajjanhar was making with Ritangshu. The fact is that if China in 21st century wants to be this global leader, then this is stooping just too low, and nobody can actually be taking them seriously. And as far as diplomacy is concerned, they've really shut themselves in the mouth. I'll take the story forward, but quickly let's get our WhatsApp video also going from our viewer on this big story.
The video is appalling. It is a desperate attempt by the Chinese to attack Indians. Ever since the Doklam issue has come up, the Chinese media, especially as we know it is state-run, has been trying to attack Indians. Well, I believe that the matter has to be solved through diplomatic means. The Chinese behaving in this way will neither do them good or us any good.
All right, that was a WhatsApp video from a viewer who, of course, is echoing the sentiment that everybody here on the panel also has. Major General Sinha, my question to you is, if China was to be taken as a global leader 21st century, it is looking to fill the space of United States, so to say, at a global level, with looking to actually have a toehold in Africa, looking to have a toehold in almost entire Far East. But videos like this, stunts like this, actually completely shoot itself in the mouth. This is not just bad diplomacy. This is just stooping to a whole new level.
Absolutely. If China hopes or dreams of becoming world leader, world most and strongest power, then it behoves on China to behave in a manner which is befitting for a world power. If it starts behaving like this, if it starts showing such stupid social media, stupid social media videos, and showing a Chinese chap, as a Sardarji, and then trying to come out with 7 sins that India has committed. I think it is China is in self-destruct mode. And Gauriji, I want to highlight 3 things about China. China's main strategy you have to understand. Firstly, China believes in 3 warfare principle, and that 3 warfare principle it also employed in with regard to South China Sea and with regard to Philippines and USA.
Yes.
And what are those three warfare principles? Firstly, media warfare, psychological warfare, in military parlance we call it psyops, and legal warfare. This video that you are showing today is a form of media warfare. And psychological warfare, in respect of China, I would say that China is trying to exert pressure
Yes.
on India so that India succumbs to the pressure,
Right.
and then China is a position to take advantage
Yes.
and bargain with India with regard to the maximum advantage it can extract from India.
I want to come back to the fact that, you know, how India has actually seen eye to China with the fact that this standoff is now entering its third month. I'd also get Professor Singh and more details from you, Major General Sinha. But let's quickly see the responses that we're getting on our Twitter handle as well. As I said, that this is an issue on which we've got a whole host of comments on Twitter as well. Let's take a look at how our Twitter handle has been buzzing on this particular issue. So there you go, totally distasteful propaganda. China shouldn't complain if Chinese get subjected to racial taunts after this video. So yes, talking about the kind of racist slur this video highlighted, and as what Major General Sinha was also pointing out, wow, from a country that had ran over Tibet. This is hilarious. So yes, at some level this is stooping too low, but also one can look at it and just ignore. More comments coming in. It's pretty funny to see this old-time racism. More concerning is the rest of the propaganda. China has lost its bearings and theatrics of the rise of a benevolent power. Sad jingoism at play. Something that we talked about earlier as well, Major General Sinha, that how China seems to be getting wary of India. Let me quickly now go across to Ritangshu and discuss, Ritangshu, the fact is, what we've been talking about here is this is jingoism at display as far as China is concerned. India should not only just exercise restraint, but as far as the Doklam standoff is concerned, what are your guests saying as to will this standoff continue or could this intensify going forward?
All right. I'll just put that question which we're getting from the main desk, and I'll put it across to you first, Mr. Maheshwari. The question being asked is, do you foresee the standoff escalating here? Because as India remains insistent and more dignified in its stand here, it's obvious that China is going to get even more desperate.
I think India should maintain its dignity as it is maintaining so far. For Chinese, as my friend has just mentioned here, the Chinese should not engage in such a prankish attitude. It doesn't behove them. But India should also try that its image in Nepal is just like a voice riot, big brother. And this image should not be in the case of Bhutan also.
So that is one important pitfall which you're pointing out. Mr. Sajjanhar, your response to that?
You know, my response is that we have maintained a very dignified response, you know, whether it was our Ministry of External Affairs press release on the 30th of June, or when Sushma Swaraj, she spoke at Rajya Sabha on the 3rd of August, etc. We should maintain that, we should be very strong. But I think our public diplomacy exercise needs to be strengthened because, you know, we have this, we had a 15-page document coming out of China on the 2nd of August in which they have given maps, they have explained all that, and it is a calumny of lies. It's a calumny of lies because they have said that it was Indians who came ahead first, also that before they started building the road, they had informed India twice. And there was no response.
Let's take this story forward. We've got a whole host of political reactions on this. Listen into that, and then we'll, of course, continue our debate.
मुझे लगता है चीन का पूरी ताकत से भारतीयों को बहिष्कार करना चाहिए, अपने आप घुटने टेक देगा। चीन जो है एक व्यापारी देश है और वो कमजोर देशों को, जो नाचीज देश हैं, उनको दबा सकता है। आज भारत का मुकाबला नहीं कर सकता जी।
These are situations where individuals really shouldn't be commenting. These are matters of state, and they know best as to how to handle this. They must have been seized of these developments, And we needn't overreact on this. Government knows how to react. But I would only think that it does make me anxious that China doesn't mean well.
The government of India should take this issue seriously. We have always been saying so. And the government of India should take this issue seriously and should use all diplomatic means so that the situation gets diffused.
All right. The one thing that really stood out in this set of comments is at the end of the day, what about the economics at play? India is an economic superpower, but the fact of the matter is we run a huge trade deficit as compared to China, upwards of $75–80 billion, and that also is a bargaining chip as far as China is concerned. Let me quickly get a response from Professor Singh on that. Professor Singh, is it time for India to be able to now look to boycott Chinese goods, send a very, very strong message to the Chinese? In fact, let me take that question to Major General Sinha. Sir, do you think it is feasible for us to be able to send a message to the Chinese also through the economic part of it? Because at the end of the day, that is also a bargaining chip for us.
Absolutely. There are two ways by which we can pressurize China from economic point of view. Firstly, the role of Indians, as common Indian citizen. Government has certain restrictions or certain limitations with regard to imposing total ban, because we have signed WTO, World Trade Organization, and both are signatories, China and India both. But a common citizen of India is not obliged by way of agreements in the WTO. Normally, Indian citizens totally free to boycott Chinese goods. So in this Diwali, let not any Indian buy any Chinese goods.
Absolutely. That's a pledge that all Indians should be
take.
taking.
And I'll
Yes.
give you, and Ms. Gauri ji, I will give you an example. When America twisted the arm of Japan and asked Japanese government to buy American oranges because it said, or American oranges were sweeter than Japanese oranges, which is a fact. Japan government succumbed to the pressure of USA. But what happened? The normal citizen of Japan totally boycotted American oranges. And all oranges got rotten in the Japanese market.
I take your point, sir. And yes, that's a pledge that all Indians should be taking. And the video that we are playing in our side screen should be the reason why we should be taking that pledge of not buying Chinese goods as far as at least our festivals are concerned. On that note, let's take a look at what are the messages that are, and the comments that are coming in on our WhatsApp number. The number, of course, is flashing at the bottom of your screen. The messages have also been coming thick and fast. They should really go back into their opium dens. That's the strong message that's coming in from Harish Singh Negi. Mohit Rajpal says, your army and their gut is like Chinese products. Take fake and low quality. You cannot match the willpower and strength possibly of Indians. That's what he was saying. So that, of course, more comments coming in. What is more funny is China not being able to do anything about the situation. Even our comic shows are better than China. Yes, one cannot deny the fact that it's a pathetically produced video. This over 3.5-minute video, it was pathetically produced. There were grammatical errors, there were spelling errors at the bottom as far as those translations are concerned. It was just terrible. Let me now go back to my colleague Ritangshu, who's at our digital desk. Ritangshu, what is the opinion that's coming out from Ashok Sajjanhar?
Everywhere. But it is very clear that now countries will be willing to stand up against it. But we have to sort of, not blink in between. We have to take this right.
Mr. Sajjanhar, you mentioned the economics of it and how a lot of countries in the region are dependent economically on China. I'll bring that point to you, but let's go back to Shashwat and let's look at what other responses. Go back to Shashwat and let's look at what other responses are coming right now. Shashwat, what are people saying now?
Well, Ritangshu, while this video was condemned and slammed globally by all leading dailies, in fact, the BCCI even termed it racist. So let's take down some more comments. Atul Gupta says, we should act as grown-ups, it's just a spoof. If we really want to react, then create a funny spoof and uncomplicate the situation. Mohit says, video shows pathetic work, content and humor, quality as cheap as China. This shows China is so jealous of India's stand on Doklam. While Lovely says, as if it's really going to affect India. And comment from Arsha, she says, it's such a shame that they are stooping down to this level.
All right. So now, Mr. Sajjanhar, the claim has been given by the RSS repeatedly today again as to going ahead and boycotting Chinese goods here. Comes on the backdrop of India already pipping China on the Global Retail Development Index here. Now, how feasible is this really? We have had the history of Satyagraha and Swadeshi movements is not something which India is new to, but is it possible in our minds to really stop buying Chinese products here and build boosting Make in India?
You know, we have to, and we should take it independently of each other, because, you know, curtailing import of Chinese goods and Make in India, you know, we shouldn't confuse between the two. Because Make in India is an initiative, is a project which is very welcome, which is very desirable across the board, whether it is defense equipment or it is nuclear reactors,
all right,
etc.
That's all the time we have on this edition of Connect. Many thanks to all my panelists, and also, of course, the panelists with Ritangshu, who's at our digital desk. The issue is extremely emotive. What we discussed here was the extremely racist and shameful video that came out from the Chinese official media. The word here is that India should exercise restraint, should not stoop so low. But at the end of the day, should we as Indians take a pledge to not take those fake, cheap, low-quality Chinese products and hurt Beijing where it hurts the most? That's a pledge that I as an Indian will be taking at least this festival. Hope you will also be doing the same. Many thanks for watching this edition of Connect.